The Valorian Dominion had conquered 17 star systems in 50 years. Their warships moved through space like shadows, appearing from nowhere and destroying everything in their path. They called themselves the apex predators of the galaxy, and no species had ever proven them wrong. Admiral Torvik stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Tide, watching the stars pass by on the main screen. He was tall for a Valorian, with dark scales covering his body and 4 arms that ended in sharp claws. His yellow eyes had seen 100 worlds burn. He feared nothing. "Admiral," said his sensor officer, "we are detecting a vessel in the Kepler sector. It appears to be a transport ship. Primitive design. No weapons." Torvik smiled, showing rows of pointed teeth. "What species?" "Unknown, Admiral. But the ship is slow and unprotected. Easy prey." The Admiral walked closer to the screen. He saw a large, clumsy-looking vessel moving through space. It had the words, "Dawn Horizon," painted on its side in a language he did not recognize. His ships could destroy it in seconds. "Scan for life forms," Torvik ordered. 2,000 biological signatures, Admiral. They appear to be soft. No natural armor. No claws. No venom glands. They are remarkably fragile. Torvik laughed. "Then they will make excellent slaves. All ships move to intercept. Boarding parties, prepare for capture." The Dawn Horizon was a colony ship from Earth, carrying families to a new world called New Bizen. Among the passengers were Park Yuna and her younger brother Park Do-yun. Yuna was 32 years old, with sharp eyes and a calm face that hid a brilliant mind. She had served 15 years in Earth's military as a strategist before retiring to help establish new colonies. Do-yun was 28, an engineer who could build anything from nothing. They were eating dinner in the ship's cafeteria when the lights went red and alarms began screaming. "All passengers, proceed to emergency stations," the captain's voice said over the speakers. "We are under attack. This is not a drill." Yuna grabbed Do-yun's arm. "Stay close to me." They ran through the corridors with hundreds of other passengers. Families held their children. Old people moved as fast as they could. Everyone was afraid, but no one panicked. These were colonists, people brave enough to leave Earth and start new lives among the stars. The ship shook violently. Then again. Then the hull split open. Valorian soldiers poured through the breach. They were terrifying tall creatures with scales and claws, carrying weapons that fired bolts of burning energy. They did not speak. They did not negotiate. They simply began killing. The first hour was chaos. Passengers tried to fight back with anything they could find. Kitchen knives, metal pipes, their bare hands. But the Valorians were faster and stronger. Their armor stopped everything humans threw at them. About 847 people died in that first hour. Yuna and Do-yun survived by hiding in a maintenance shaft. They listened to the screams above them. They heard children crying for parents who would never answer. They smelled smoke and blood. "We have to do something," Do-yun whispered. "Not yet," Yuna said. Her voice was cold and steady. "We survive first. Then we fight." When the killing stopped, the Valorians gathered the survivors. 1,153 humans were forced into the cargo hold of the Crimson Tide. They were given no food, no water, no explanation. They were cargo now. Property. Admiral Torvik visited them once. He stood at the entrance of the cargo hold and looked at the humans packed inside like animals. Some were crying. Some were praying. Some just stared at him with empty eyes. "You are now slaves of the Valorian Dominion," Torvik announced. "Your old lives are over. Forget your homes. Forget your families. You exist only to serve us." He turned to leave, then stopped. A human woman was staring at him. She was not crying. She was not afraid. She was studying him, his armor, his weapons, his movements like he was a problem to be solved. It was Park Yuna. Torvik felt something strange. For just a moment, he felt uncomfortable under her gaze. He pushed the feeling away. These creatures were weak. They had no claws, no armor, no weapons. They were prey. Before leaving the Kepler sector, Torvik sent a message to Earth. He wanted the other humans to know what had happened. He wanted them to be afraid. "Your kind are weak," the message said. "Your worlds now belong to the Dominion. Resistance is foolish. Surrender, and some of you may live." On Earth, the message arrived 3 days later. It was played before the United Defense Council, a gathering of military leaders from every nation. They watched the recording in silence. They saw images of dead colonists. They heard Torvik's mocking words. Admiral Choi Yoonji was 60 years old, with gray hair and a face marked by decades of service. She had never lost a battle. She had never left a soldier behind. And she had never, in her entire life, felt rage like she felt now. She stood up slowly. Everyone in the room turned to look at her. "These creatures think we are weak," she said quietly. "They think we will surrender because they killed some of us. They think we will hide because we are afraid." She paused. "They do not know what we are." Admiral Choi looked around the room at the other leaders. Korean, American, Chinese, European, African, all of them united in this moment. "Our ancestors survived ice ages," she continued. "They hunted mammoths with wooden spears. They crossed oceans in boats made of wood. They walked across continents, chasing prey until the animals dropped dead from exhaustion. We are not weak. We are the most persistent predators our world has ever known." She took a deep breath. "Activate protocol persistence. Find our people. And make these Valorians understand what happens when you hunt the hunters." Somewhere in space, aboard the Crimson Tide, Park Yuna sat in the darkness of the cargo hold. She was not crying. She was counting guards. She was memorizing patrol schedules. She was planning. The hunt had begun. The Valorians did not understand what was happening. In the 3 weeks after the attack on the dawn horizon, strange things began occurring at the edges of their territory. Small ships appeared on their sensors, tiny vessels, barely larger than escape pods. They did not attack. They did not communicate. They simply watched. When Valorian patrol ships moved to destroy them, the small vessels disappeared. But more always came. Always watching. Always waiting. Admiral Torvik stood on his bridge, reading the latest reports with growing confusion. "How many ships have we detected this week?" 47, Admiral, his officer replied. "We destroyed 12. The others escaped before we could reach them." "Where are they coming from?" "We do not know, Admiral. They appear, observe our movements, and vanish. Our analysts believe they are mapping our patrol routes." Torvik's claws scratched against the metal floor. This behavior made no sense. The humans were supposed to surrender or hide. Instead, they were watching, studying, learning. Lieutenant Han Ji-woo was 29 years old, and she had not slept in 4 days. She sat in the pilot's seat of her ship, the Silent Wake, staring at the Valorian supply convoy moving across her screen. A crew of 6 operated silently behind her, tracking every ship, recording every transmission. "Lieutenant," said her navigator, a young man named Shin Haejin, "we have been following this convoy for 37 days. The crew is exhausted. Perhaps we should return to base and let another team continue." Ji-woo shook her head. "No, we stay." "But Lieutenant, do you know how our ancestors hunted, Haejin?" Ji-woo asked without looking away from the screen. "Millions of years ago, before we had weapons or tools, we hunted by running. We would find an animal and chase it. Not fast, we were never the fastest. But we never stopped. We would chase for hours, days. The animal would run and rest. But we never rested. We just kept coming. Eventually, the animal would collapse from exhaustion. And then we would kill it. She finally turned to look at him. Her eyes were tired but burning with purpose. The Valorians are fast, she said. They are strong, but they are not persistent. They attack and retreat. They sleep for 8 hours every cycle. They cannot imagine an enemy that simply refuses to stop. She turned back to the screen. We are that enemy. And we will follow this convoy until we know everything about how they move, how they think, and how they die. Taejun was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded and returned to his station, far away on the Crimson Tide. Park Yuna was becoming something the Valorians had never encountered before, a patient hunter. She had been in the cargo hold for 3 weeks. The conditions were terrible: little food, dirty water, no privacy. Many prisoners were sick. Some had died. But Yuna was not thinking about comfort. She was thinking about escape. Every day, she watched the guards. She noted when they changed shifts. She counted their weapons. She studied the way they walked, the way they talked to each other, the small signs that showed when they were tired or distracted. Her brother Do-yoon worked beside her. While Yuna gathered information, he gathered materials. A piece of metal here, a wire there, broken tools that the Valorians had thrown away. He hid everything in the walls and floor of the cargo hold. What are you building? Yuna asked him one night. I do not know yet, Do-yoon admitted. But when the time comes, I will have what we need. The other prisoners began to notice what the siblings were doing. A few wanted to help. Yuna organized them carefully. She gave each person a small task. Watch this guard. Listen to that conversation. Remember this schedule. They became a network of eyes and ears inside the enemy ship. The Valorians did not notice. To them, humans were just cargo, animals. They did not expect animals to plan. But strange things began to happen. Guards started feeling uncomfortable when they entered the cargo hold. The human prisoners would stare at them without blinking. Sometimes, dozens of humans would stare at the same guard, all at the same time, in complete silence. It was unnerving. One guard reported that a human prisoner had smiled at him after being beaten. Another said that the prisoners whispered strange words at night, always the same words, over and over. What are they saying? Admiral Torvik demanded. His translator struggled with the audio recording. It is difficult, Admiral. But the closest translation would be, we remember. We are coming. Torvik felt that strange discomfort again. They are just trying to frighten us. Ignore them. But his crew could not ignore them. The whispers continued every night. The staring continued every day. And the guards began having nightmares about human eyes watching them in the darkness. On Earth, Dr. Baek Soing was briefing the Defense Council on what they were facing. She was a xenopsychologist, a scientist who studied alien minds. She had spent 3 weeks analyzing every piece of information about the Valorians. They are ambush predators, she explained. Their evolutionary history is based on quick attacks. They hide, they strike, they win. If they do not win quickly, they retreat and try again later. They have never encountered a species that fights differently. Admiral Choi Yoonji leaned forward. What is their weakness? Time, Soin said simply. They cannot handle long conflicts. Their psychology is built for short, intense violence. A prolonged war will confuse them, and confusion will become fear. Yoonji nodded slowly. Then we will give them a long war. The longest war they have ever seen. Across human space, protocol persistence was spreading. Ships were being modified for long-range tracking. Crews were being trained in patience and observation. Supplies were being stockpiled for campaigns that would last months or years. The humans were not preparing to fight the Valorians. They were preparing to hunt them, and in the cargo hold of the Crimson Tide, Park Yuna finished her map of the ship's interior. She knew every corridor, every guard station, every weak point. She looked at her brother and smiled. Soon, she whispered that the Valorians had made a terrible mistake. They had attacked a species that had spent millions of years perfecting the art of the chase. They had poked the Persistence Hunters, and now the Persistence Hunters were waking up. 3 months had passed since the attack on the Dawn Horizon. The Valorian Dominion was no longer laughing. Captain Kan Minho stood in the shadows of Valorian Station, Nexus to 7, watching guards walk past his hiding spot. He was not a large man, average height, average build, with a quiet face that people often forgot. This made him perfect for his job. His team consisted of 12 soldiers. They had been on this station for 6 days, moving through maintenance tunnels and storage rooms, never staying in one place for long. The station held 3,000 Valorian personnel. 12 humans should have been helpless against such numbers, but Minho was not here to fight. He was here to break them. Team 2 report, he whispered into his communicator. Water treatment sabotage complete, came the reply. The contamination is small. They will not notice for weeks. Team 3? Food storage accessed. We added the compound to 17 containers. It will cause mild sickness. Nothing deadly. Nothing obvious, Team 4? Messages placed in walls of sections 5 through 9. They will find them eventually. Minho smiled. Good. Return to extraction point. We leave in 2 hours. The messages were simple, written in Valorian language. We see you. We are patient. We are coming. The humans did not want to destroy the station. They wanted the Valorians living there to feel afraid every moment of every day. They wanted them to wonder if their food was safe, if their water was clean, if something was watching them from the shadows. This was not war as the Valorians understood it. This was psychological terror. On Earth, Admiral Choi Yoonji watched reports coming in from across Valorian space. Dozens of similar operations were happening simultaneously. Human teams appeared on stations, ships, and colonies. They did not kill unless necessary. They did not steal resources. They simply reminded the Valorians that nowhere was safe. The enemy is showing signs of stress, reported one of her officers. Sleep disorders among Valorian military personnel have increased by 40%. Desertion rates are climbing. Several commanders have requested transfers away from human-adjacent sectors. Yoonji nodded with satisfaction. They are ambush predators. They are designed to be the ones hiding in the shadows, waiting to strike. Now the shadows belong to us. They do not know how to handle being the prey. She turned to the tactical display, showing the location of the Crimson Tide, the ship that still held over 1,000 human prisoners. What is the status of the rescue mission? The Silent Wake has been tracking the Crimson Tide for 41 days, her officer replied. Lieutenant Han Ji-woo reports that the ship will pass through the Vega corridor in approximately 72 hours. That is our best opportunity for extraction. And are people inside the ship? We received a coded signal last night. Park Yuna and the Resistance are ready. They will create a distraction when our forces arrive. Yoonji closed her eyes for a moment. Over 1,000 people had been suffering in that cargo hold for 3 months. She thought about them every day, every hour. Send the order, she said. Begin Operation Homecoming. On the Crimson Tide, Park Yuna gathered her inner circle in the darkness of the cargo hold. Her brother Do-hyun was there, along with 7 others who had proven their loyalty and courage. They spoke in whispers. their bodies blocking the view of any cameras. "The signal came through," Yuna said. "Our ships are coming. They will reach us in 3 days." An older man named Bei Gunwu shook his head. "How can we fight the guards? We have no weapons." "We have weapons," Dahyun said quietly. He reached into a hidden space in the floor and pulled out a collection of objects, sharpened metal bars, wires twisted into garrots, small explosives made from chemicals he had stolen from cleaning supplies. "I have been building for 3 months. It is not much, but it will be enough for a surprise." Yuna looked at each person in the circle. "When our ships arrive, the Valorians will be distracted. That is when we strike. We take control of the lower decks and lock ourselves in. We hold until rescue arrives." A young woman named Song Nari spoke up. "What if we fail?" Yuna met her eyes. "Then we die fighting instead of dying as slaves. But we will not fail. We have something the Valorians do not have." "What is that?" "Patience. We have waited 3 months for this moment. We have watched them. We have learned them. They think we are broken. They think we have given up." Yuna's eyes grew hard. "They are wrong." Far away, Lieutenant Han Ji-woo pushed her ship harder than it was designed to go. Her crew had not slept properly in over 40 days. Their eyes were red. Their hands shook from too much caffeine. But none of them complained. "Contact in 68 hours, Hajim reported. "We will intercept the Crimson Tide as it enters the Vega corridor." Ji-woo nodded. "Signal the assault teams. Tell them to prepare for boarding action." She looked at her tired crew 6 people who had chased an enemy ship across half a galaxy without rest. She felt proud of them. "You have done something incredible," she told them. "You have proven what humanity is. We are not the strongest. We are not the fastest. But we never stop. We never give up. And because of that, we are going to save our people." Hajim smiled weakly. "And then we can finally sleep?" Ji-woo laughed, the first laugh any of them had heard in weeks. "Yes, then we can sleep." On the Crimson Tide, Admiral Torvik was having nightmares. He dreamed of human eyes watching him from the darkness. He dreamed of whispers saying words he could not understand. He woke up tired and irritable. His ship's doctor had prescribed medication, but it did not help. Something was wrong. He could feel it. "Admiral," his sensor officer said one morning, "we are detecting unusual activity at the edge of our sensor range." "What kind of activity?" "Small ships. They appear briefly, then disappear. The pattern is strange. It is almost like they are following us." Torvik's claws dug into the armrest of his chair. "Following them. Just like the reports from other Valorian ships. Just like the small vessels that appeared everywhere now, watching and waiting." "Increase speed," he ordered. "I want to reach Valorian space as quickly as possible." "Yes, Admiral." Torvik stared at the stars on his screen. For the first time in his long career, he felt like prey. And somewhere in the darkness of space, Lieutenant Han Ji-woo watched the Crimson Tide accelerate on her sensors. "You can run faster," she said softly. "But you cannot run forever. We are coming." The hunt was reaching its climax. The Valorian High Command met in their grand hall on the homeworld. And for the first time in 300 years, the mood was not confident. Supreme Commander Veklis sat at the head of a long table, made from the bones of conquered species. Around him sat the 12 highest-ranking admirals of the Dominion. Admiral Torvik was among them, his scales now dull from stress and sleepless nights. "The situation is becoming serious," Veklis said. His voice was calm, but his 4 arms were clenched tight. "Human activity in our territory has increased by 400% in the past 2 months. They are everywhere. Our soldiers are afraid to sleep. Our stations report constant psychological disturbances. We have lost 17 supply convoys to what appears to be sabotage. Admiral Torvik spoke up. Supreme Commander, I recommend immediate withdrawal from human space. These creatures are not normal. They do not fight like any species we have encountered. They do not seem to eat or sleep. They follow our ships for weeks without stopping. Our crews are breaking under the pressure. Vekalis slammed a claw on the table. The Dominion does not retreat. We have conquered 17 star systems. We will not run from soft, clawless animals. With respect, Supreme Commander, Torvik said carefully, these animals have something we do not understand. My ship carried over 1,000 human prisoners. Even in captivity, even without weapons, they never stopped watching us. They memorized our routines. They studied our weaknesses. And they whispered at night the same words over and over. My crew began to fear entering the cargo hold. Another admiral laughed nervously. They are just primitives trying to scare us. They succeeded, Torvik admitted. The room went silent. An admiral admitting fear was almost unthinkable. Torvik continued. 3 days ago, human warships intercepted my vessel in the Vega corridor. They did not announce themselves. They did not negotiate. They simply appeared and began boarding operations. At the same moment, the prisoners in my cargo hold revolted. They had built weapons from nothing, pieces of metal, cleaning chemicals, wires. They moved with perfect coordination, as if they had planned every step for months. He paused, because they had. For 3 months, while we thought they were broken, they were planning, watching, waiting. That is what these humans do. They wait, and when the moment comes, they strike with precision we cannot match. Vekalis was quiet for a long moment. How many prisoners escaped? All of them. 1,143 humans. We lost 200 soldiers trying to stop them. The human casualties were minimal. The room was silent. This cannot continue, another admiral said. Our economy cannot sustain this level of military alertness. Soldiers are refusing assignments. Colonies near human space are demanding evacuation. The Dominion is suffering more from fear than from actual attacks. Vekalis stood up, his massive form casting shadows across the table. Then we will crush them. Prepare the Grand Fleet. We will attack Earth directly and end this. Torvik closed his eyes. He knew this was a mistake, but he also knew that arguing further was pointless. Across the galaxy, Operation Eternal Hunt was in full effect. On the agricultural world of Thesca Prime, Sergeant O. Taeyang led a ground team through fields of alien crops. They moved at night, invisible in the darkness, leaving only small traces of their presence. Do not destroy the irrigation systems, Taeyang ordered his team. Damage them slightly. Make them work inefficiently. The crops will suffer slowly, and the Valorians will not understand why. A young soldier named Yang Hanil frowned. Sergeant, why do we not just destroy everything? It would be faster. Taeyang smiled. Because fear is more powerful than destruction. If we destroyed everything, they would be angry. They would want revenge. But if we damage things slowly, if we leave boot prints in their soil, if we make them feel watched constantly, they will be afraid. And afraid enemies make mistakes. He pointed at the fields around them. Our ancestors understood this. When they hunted large animals, they did not try to kill quickly. They chased. They followed. They made the animal run until its heart gave out from exhaustion. That is what we are doing to the Valorians. We are making them run until their empire collapses from fear. They finished their work and disappeared into the night. The next morning, Valorian farmers found human boot prints between their crops. Nothing was destroyed. Nothing was stolen. But the message was clear. Humans had walked here. Humans could return at any time. On Earth, the rescued prisoners from the Crimson Tide were recovering in medical facilities. Park Yuna did not stay long. "I want to join the operations," she told Admiral Choi Yoonji. Yoonji looked at the younger woman. Yuna was thin from months of poor nutrition. Her eyes had a hardness that had not been there before. But her voice was steady and strong. "You have been through a terrible experience," Yoonji said gently. "You deserve rest." "I will rest when they are defeated," Yuna replied. "They killed 800 of my people in the first hour. They kept us in a cargo hold like animals for 3 months. They thought we were weak." Her hands clenched into fists. "I want to show them what weakness really looks like." Yoonji studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Report to Captain Kang Minho. He is leading psychological operations. I think you will be valuable to his team." Yuna saluted and left. Her brother Do-young went with her. They had survived together. Now they would hunt together. The Valorian Grand Fleet launched 1 month later. 300 warships, carrying 500,000 soldiers, headed toward Earth. Supreme Commander Vikalis led the fleet personally. He was confident that overwhelming force would end the human threat forever. He was wrong. Human ships did not meet the fleet in open battle. Instead, they harassed. They followed. They struck supply lines and disappeared. They attacked ships at the edges of the formation and vanished before reinforcements arrived. The journey to Earth should have taken 3 weeks. After 2 months, the Grand Fleet was still in transit. They had lost 47 ships to hit-and-run attacks. Their supplies were running low. Their crews were exhausted from constant alerts, and every night, the same message appeared on their communication systems, broadcast from somewhere they could not locate. "We are still here. We are still watching. The hunt never ends." Vakalis began to understand what Torvik had tried to tell him. These humans were not prey. They were something far more terrifying. They were persistence hunters. And they would chase the Valorian fleet across the entire galaxy if necessary. On his command ship, surrounded by the most powerful fleet his species had ever assembled, Supreme Commander Vakalis began to feel afraid. Supreme Commander Vakalis died on a cold morning, alone in his quarters, his foreheart stopped by stress and exhaustion. He had not slept properly in 73 days. The medical officer said his body simply gave up. The Grand Fleet never reached Earth. After 4 months of constant harassment, it turned back. They had lost 112 ships without ever fighting a single major battle. The remaining crews were broken jumping at shadows, refusing to leave their quarters. Seeing human faces in every dark corner, the new Supreme Commander, a younger officer named Desik, called for peace negotiations immediately. He had watched the Dominion's greatest military force be destroyed without a single direct engagement. He understood now what they were facing. The negotiations took place on a neutral station at the edge of human space. Admiral Choi Yoonji led the human delegation. With her stood the people who had made this moment possible. Captain Kang Min-ho, Lieutenant Han Ji-woo, Sergeant Oh Tae-young, Dr. Baek Soin, and at the end of the line, Park Yuna and Park Do-hyun. Desik entered the room with 6 Valorian guards. He was tall like all his kind, but his scales had lost their shine and his movements were slow and tired. His species had spent a year living in constant fear. It showed. "We have come to discuss terms," Desik said. His voice was quiet. Gone was the arrogance that had marked Torvik's transmission 1 year ago. Eunji did not sit down. She stood facing him, her gray hair pulled back, her eyes cold and patient. "There will be no discussion," she said. "There will be terms. You will accept them." Desik's guards shifted uncomfortably. Their claws flexed, old instincts telling them to fight. But they had seen what happened to those who fought humans. They stayed still. "What are your terms?" Desic asked. "First, all human prisoners in Valorian space will be released immediately. Every single one. If we discover later that any were kept hidden, we will consider it an act of war." Agreed. Second, the Valorian Dominion will pay reparations to the families of everyone killed in the attack on the Dawn Horizon. The amount will be determined by us. Desic hesitated. The cost would be enormous. But he nodded. Agreed. Third, the Dominion will withdraw from all systems within 50 light years of human space. These systems will become a buffer zone. No Valorian military vessel will enter them for any reason. That is, significant territory. Those are the terms. Desic's head lowered slightly. Agreed. Yunji stepped closer to him. She was smaller than him. All humans were smaller than Valorians. But in that moment, she seemed to tower over him. "You attacked our civilians," she said slowly. "You enslaved our people. You mocked our weakness." She paused, and her voice grew harder. "We are not weak. We are patient. And now you understand what your ancestors should have warned you about." She leaned in close, her eyes locked on his. "Never assault the humans. We will chase you across the galaxy. We will chase you across time. We will chase your children and your children's children until the debt is paid. This is not anger. This is not revenge. This is simply what we are. We are persistence hunters. We never stop." Desic could not hold her gaze. He looked away. "I understand," he whispered. "No," Yunji said. "You are beginning to understand. Your species will spend generations truly understanding." The treaty was signed that day. Desic returned to his homeworld with the news of complete surrender. Many Valorians were ashamed. Others were relieved. All of them were changed. The story spread across the galaxy. Other species heard about what had happened to the mighty Valorian Dominion, how they had attacked a seemingly weak species and been destroyed not by superior weapons or greater numbers, but by patience and persistence. The phrase "human grudge" entered the common vocabulary of 100 worlds. It meant a consequence that would last forever, a debt that would be collected no matter how long it took. On a space station near the former Valorian border, Park Yuna stood at a window, looking out at the stars. Her brother Dalian stood beside her. It had been 1 year since the attack on the Dawn Horizon. 1 year since they had lost 800 friends and neighbors. 1 year since they had become hunters instead of prey. "How do you feel?" Do-hyun asked. Yuna thought about the question. She remembered the cargo hold. The darkness. The smell of death. The guards who had treated them like animals. "I feel like it is not over," she said finally. "The war is over. We won. This war is over," Yuna agreed. "But there will be others. There will always be species who look at humans and see weakness, who see our soft skin and our small size and think we are prey." She turned to face her brother. "And we will always prove them wrong, because they see what we look like. They do not see what we are inside millions of years of survival, millions of years of refusing to give up, millions of years of chasing prey across endless distances until it dropped dead from exhaustion." She smiled, and there was something ancient and dangerous in that smile. "That is our inheritance. That is our gift. And that is our warning to the galaxy." In the years that followed, the story of the human-Valorian War became required learning for every species that achieved space travel. The lesson was simple. Humans were not powerful because of their technology or their weapons. They were powerful because they simply did not stop. Old species whispered warnings to younger ones. Travelers at space stations shared stories about the persistence hunters from the small blue planet. And whenever a young, ambitious species considered attacking human colonies, their elders would shake their heads and repeat the ancient words, "Do not assault the humans." The eternal hunt is real. Their ancestors chased prey until it died of exhaustion. Their descendants will chase you until your empire crumbles to dust. And in the silence between stars, if you listen carefully, you could almost hear the footsteps of hunters who had been running for millions of years and who would never, ever stop.